This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.
Hi, I'm John Sicotte, Executive Editor of the Brewer Magazine. Welcome to another edition of the Brewer Magazine podcast. We are sponsored by Keg Logistics. Make sure you're going to keglogistics.com/brewermag for all those details. And of course, you can find us online at brewermag.com and listen to the podcast at YouTube or on Spotify as well. Well, sometimes breweries open up just as a brewery. Sometimes they open up with a little bit more. How about a 3-in-1? As we are at Juniper Brewing in Bowling Green, Ohio. I got Zach and Chris with us. Thanks for joining us here on the Brewer Make podcast, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Super excited. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining me. And yeah, like I said, 3-in-1. You guys, when you open a coffee shop, drinking some coffee right here, a brew pub model, so that means a restaurant and also a brewery as well that is putting out beer into the community and right here near the campus of Bowling Green State University. Why?
Oh man, you want to take
Yeah,
that one first?
sure. Yeah, so I feel like, people ask us this all the time, like why 3 separate businesses? And it's even unique too, like if you've ever visited our space, like the space itself is pretty unique. One, Zach and I just love beer in general. We're BGSU grads, we're Falcon Flames, and we moved to Cleveland back in 2013. We moved in 2006. We moved to Cleveland, and then, so in Cleveland, we really started to understand the beer industry, and we made good friends there with the beer, culture, and we started then traveling. Like I think a lot of couples do. It's like their thing, right? So we traveled. I at the time was in the banking industry. I still am in finance, but I had the territory of Michigan, and so we just fell in love with Michigan in general. In one of my trips, I visited, Traverse City, and there was this little shop called Brew, and it was a cafe, and they had all these tap handles. And Zach and I together, we're just a little unique. It's like our passion was like scheming, So we would be like, man, if we had a brewery, if we had a place, what would it look like? What would it be? And I came home and I was just like, you're not gonna believe this. It was this like little cafe. It had a cafe menu but all these beers on tap. And I was talking with the owners, and they were like, yeah, the culture here is really amazing, and people come and they stay all day. And that was really sort of the seed for what evolved into Juniper years and years later. Lots of stuff in the middle there. We had 3 kids. I switched jobs multiple times. Zach was a teacher for 13 years. Huge science background. And, I think it was always in our hearts to be entrepreneurs. And so when we got the chance, we moved back here to Bowling Green from Cleveland. Unfortunately, my father-in-law, Zach's dad, had cancer at the time. And this was right before the pandemic. So we moved back home here. I'm actually from the Canton area in Ohio. But together we started to think about, okay, let's make this real. Let's do it. It's now, right? It's now or never. There's never a good time. Although that was a particularly not a great time. Months later, the pandemic began.
Yeah.
But what a lot of folks don't know, and they always say like, man, your road was so tough. And it was like, during the construction, during the pandemic, all that. The reality was when the pandemic hit in March, we really hadn't drawn a significant amount on our SBA loan. We could have turned back. And we just kind of looked at each other and we were like, it can't last that long. How long can this last? But at that moment, we started to retool our whole model. We did have drip coffee in the original business model, and it was sort of like Panera style. Like you kind of walk up, get your own. Because as you can see, the space is 7,000 square feet, so it's a lot of space. And we're early people, so we knew Zach was going to be up early in here. So it was like, why not be open? This space actually was a Panera before we took it over. Yep. So we really thought the coffee makes perfect sense. Just have it open, have some pastries, whatever. Well, the pandemic hit, obviously, way delayed our ability to get the machinery and all of the equipment up and running on the beer side. And so we just invested even more money into the cafe. We purchased an espresso machine. I mean, all the things. We worked with these really amazing partners. We wanted things to be kind of local, but with our Cleveland roots, we picked Rising Star Coffee Roaster, which I was super passionate about and love those guys when I worked in downtown Cleveland for all those years. And they really helped us get off the ground. You know, they helped us get the coffee piece of it up and running. Because although I love coffee, I'm a black coffee drinker. So I was not, they helped us. So it was awesome. We opened the cafe in February of 2021. Probably about what did we anticipated opening in summer. So it was about like 6-7 months after when we anticipated opening. And then I want to say beer came along in April, and then food in May. So it was kind of strategic to like do that. But and we had to. There was no other way to do it. But it just caused so much confusion for customers, guests, and employees. They were like, "What's going on? I thought we were a coffee shop. I thought we were this." But now I think folks are starting to get it. And Juniper, 4 years later, is really kind of making its way. It's getting its feet underneath itself. We're all, the staff is amazing. We've gone through multiple iterations of culture and different like team structures and leadership structures. I work a full-time job in addition to Juniper, and that affords us the ability not to lean on the business to support our family. As I mentioned, we got 3 kids. We have 3 kids. So we've just it's all in, all the chips are in, on this model, which we believe is in the spirit and in this like moment of this craft beer wave and this new industry, like, movement that's happening. So, it's like full flavor, all taste, it's coffee, it's, we're working on THC stuff. We have a catering model, we have a distribution model for beer. I mean, it's just like anything and everything you can imagine is happening here.
Wow, yeah. And that's got to be some logistical challenges as well in managing basically 3 different operations.
Yes.
And really now it's sounding more like maybe 5 different operations if you really put it into that perspective. How is that hire? Is it all under you, or are you finding people to be able to kind of manage different things, Zach? I mean, what is that logistical challenge, and how do you overcome it?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of logistical challenges with it. And I think that Chris and I continue to learn the best way, which we're still working on figuring out what that best way is. Chris and I kind of like, with her schedule, she travels, like she said. So Chris and I like have to schedule time to meet like on the weekends to like talk about these things. So it's really her and I talking through things and the best, we've never owned a business before. So what we think would be the best. And then we come back and I kind of disseminate information to kind of our leadership team, and they kind of run with the things that Chris and I want to do. Like I said, there's not always the best, or we change these decisions. We learn as we go, and then we kind of retool and regroup and make the next best kind of decision that we think is the right thing. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think what brewers and other folks might want to hear is like, so our model is like four revenue lines. So it's distribution, it's the restaurant, obviously we have full service restaurant menu, servers, all the things. We have the cafe, and then we have like a catering business or special events. So it's 4 revenue lines, and the glory of that is you're not dependent on just one, right? It's all 4 kind of coming together. And so what Zach is referring to is this, sort of, I'll call it org chart, we call it a working document, right? It's like constantly going through. So we've gone through multiple iterations. Do we need a GM? Do we need, different, shift leads and team leads in all the different areas? So we have a different, shift lead for cafe, a shift lead for kitchen, a shift lead for front of house. I mean, we've gone through all these different iterations of org charts. And it's trial and error. It really, really is. And you got to find out what works best for you. We live in a college town. There's so much turnover on our staff. So we had to pivot really quickly and understand, like, how do we get people up and running quickly, and are able to, just help folks get, because oftentimes folks are coming here, it's their first job. I mean, and that's a lot to take on, as a business model when you're doing all these sophisticated tech, stuff. And it's been a lot. It's been fun. but lots of learning. We're always humbled every time. Every time, it's like something doesn't work out, we're like, oh,
Yeah.
shoot. But
when it comes to like entrepreneurs, I know like even us here at Brewer, entrepreneur backgrounds with Tyler, and then starting the magazine, having his own brewery now. You always are leaning on mentors. Did you guys have people to lean on, either business wise, brewing wise? Who do you still talk to kind of flesh things out?
So on the brewery side of things, yes, absolutely. We, like Chris had kind of mentioned in previous questions, we spent a lot of time in Cleveland, met some amazing people, and got the opportunity to work for and learn from some big names in the Cleveland area. I went through the American Brewers Guild, so my first experience coming out of the Brewers Guild was working at Fatheads, and so working with Matt and Chris and Sean Yasaki, who's probably my biggest, I would say, mentor. At the time, they were all at Fatheads, and so It was a cool time to be there at Fatheads because they were just getting started with their very first production facility. Which, and at the time, I think that Chris had installed like 3 fermenters in that whole place. And so I would go over to the production facility on certain days and work with Chris. I got the opportunity, like I said, to work with Matt. But I spent really the most time with Sean at the time. And Sean was just basically a starting out brewer at the time. He'd had a limited amount of time at Fatheads at that point, but was kind of Matt and Mike, their only other person in the brewery at the time. So I spent a lot of time with Sean, then went from Fatheads and spent some time with Andy at Market Garden. I spent a summer there. All this was during teaching. So any break that I had, I would just go down there and say, listen, the Brewers Guild would get me in the door, and relationships with these guys. And I'd be like, I don't need money. I just want to work. We're working on this. And so they were like, oh, heck yeah, you can come and work.
Just leaving out one part. I was pregnant with twins at the time.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Busy.
Yeah. It was busy. And then, like I said, Sean went to Platform and then opened up Noble Beast. And so, then I spent a lot of time with Sean and Eric at Noble Beast, and really kind of got to dive in and spend time. And the two of them combined, which we're all still texting back and forth about issues or questions or whatever else, really allowed me to that was the biggest learning took place there.
Awesome.
And I would say on the business side, I think, I don't think we really have like a mentor of such, but I'm always digging in and reading about certain companies. I mentioned Panera. I dug in and really understood the story of Panera, Starbucks. Did a bunch of digging and read a bunch of stuff about, John Schultz, all the things. So a lot of CEOs, Bob Iger, who's was the president of Disney and still is, just reading about different sorts of companies and how they formed and what their story is and how they evolved. The culture of Juniper and the premise of the beer is really important for sure. But ultimately, what I think we're in the business of is creating connection. That's at the heart of what we're trying to do. And the beer, the food, the coffee is all just the vehicle to do that. And so I'm always looking at, even Patagonia, I researched and dug into. So it's just about the spirit of, social, environmental awareness and responsibility and all those types of things.
So you kind of touched on it when you were talking about these might be first-time employees and first-time jobs.
Yes.
When it comes to running a coffee shop and a brew pub, and there's brewing involved as well, how much cross-training is there involved, and or is it singular? Could you have a morning shift and an afternoon shift, type things like that? How has that evolved at all, from where you thought it would be?
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.
Well, we have one perfect example of that. And that is Elena, who is our brewer. she works hand in hand with Zach. She started as a cashier, 19 years old, day one. She's been here for 4 years, and over time has learned, the bar side of things. Came back and talked with Zach about wanting to be, on the beer side. Has trained and now is a full-time brewer. And she began her career. She was on a panel just recently at the Ohio Craft Brewers Conference, and just is skyrocketing right now. So she is the perfect example of someone who started with us early, caught the bug, really believes in what the model is and what we're trying to do and achieve, and has cross-trained in many different areas. And she helps out with everything. There's not an ounce of this place that she doesn't know about or, she can hop in when, like, a lot of times when these guys are brewing, she'll like see that the cafe is slammed and pop over there and barista for a few minutes, So I think Elena is probably our number one best example of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that like how we,
Yeah.
The fact that we have students that have crazy schedules
Yeah.
has been a big learning opportunity for Chris and I. I think that when we started, it was we kind of siloed all these different areas off, and so everybody,
and we had to because of how it was set up, right?
Yeah.
It was just cafe first, and then we hired a whole front of house staff. It was
Yeah, no, it's all good. But then as we've continued to grow, inevitably things come up. We have students, we have 18, 19, 20-year-old kids that work for us. And so when issues have arisen in the brewery, it was like, and we have to kind of absorb those losses in the moment. It was like, man, it'd be great if someone else knew some of these things so that we could then shift people around in the moment, right? But that was a lot of painful lessons and frustration and stress to get to that point. But now we really focus as much as we can on getting people cross-trained. So inevitably we can move people where we need them.
Nice.
We kind of came up with this model of like shift lead and team lead. So what we found was we don't have a general manager anymore. We tried 2 general managers. Well, I started off with actually a manager in each area, a manager in coffee, because that's how we onboarded everything, right?
Yeah.
And we found out real quickly that was not going to work for us. Then we tried the general manager route. So then we hired 2 general managers back to back. Neither one of them stayed for longer than 2 years, year and a half. Noticed that things were just falling through the cracks. It was not a sustainable model for Juniper. And so at the time, we just had this really great group of graduate students that were here. And it was like, hey, let's take a chance on this team lead and shift lead structure. And so that's kind of what we have now. So Zach obviously is here on the day-to-day. I am not. But he sort of manages the team leads. And then like we have a leadership crew. We coined that. We got everybody t-shirts. So everybody that's a team lead and a shift lead has a t-shirt and like they're identified in that way. And they sort of disseminate the information down to the staff. So I would say, like we've had so many stops and starts with different org charts and different structures because of the unique 4 revenue lines.
Yeah.
It's like, but you're finding, and I think that our secret to success now is we're finding out who is good in different areas. So maybe, one shift lead is really passionate about events. And so they're going to take the lead on the events and really helping with that. Maybe, a team lead is really passionate about the bar. And so they're taking the lead on seasonal drinks and doing this. So it's kind of leaning into that. It's so personal and like really trying to dig into, and I think as an entrepreneur, it's like, okay, do you think about the role and then fill that with a person, or do you think about the person and then try to like backfill like what the needs are of the company? And I feel like it's ebbs and flows with that. Like it really is a balance. You really can't be all one side or all the other side. It can't be so absolute. You really have to have a balance there. And I think that's what we've learned over time.
Nice. Well, let's move into just who Juniper is, how the public perceives you guys. What strategies have worked best for, either bringing in a certain demographic or seeing that perhaps, like you said, you might have a completely different group of people showing up here at 8, 9 a.m. versus coming in after dinner. How do you guys cater to both of those? How have you kind of found your footing in those different places? And, how are you marketing yourself to the community like that?
Oh my God, I hate that question. I hate it because, it's like the marketing and the social media and the digital side of things is so, it is so hard. It's hard because it's like it's so important, but it's like the last thing that you have to like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like invest in. We struggle with that, you
Yeah.
know, like the digital social media marketing part of it is hard.
Mhm.
I would say we threw all of our chips in our partnership with Juniper and BGSU.
Yeah.
So we really started there. That was like a strategic moment. We partnered with BGSU. We are the official craft beer of the university. So we have a wonderful partnership with them. All of our beer is sold in the sporting venues for BGSU. And it really was able to allow us to get our foot in the door at Kroger, which is a national retailer. And now Kroger, we've been in Kroger for 2 years,
About a year and a half.
year and a half maybe.
Yeah.
And they now have all 4 or 5 of our styles, like our seasonal, our flagship beers, some of our seasonals. But that was really like, it was like put all the chips there first. So like from a marketing perspective. So we pay to have a great partnership with Falcon Properties, and then we are also the partners with the university on the Ziggy Zumba. So it was like focus was there for a long time. We have Instagram, Facebook, that kind of a thing, and I would say the social media side of things is really we try to balance with the coffee and the beer and the food. So there's no methodology, unfortunately. I know they're supposed to be. I know that they're supposed to be. And everybody is probably watching like, oh my God, they're supposed to have, like, I think people like, know that there's like a science behind it. We don't. I mean, like, the reality is, Elena, who I mentioned a few minutes ago, she does all the social media. She like is here in real time, and posting. And, I think that we get anybody and everybody. We get community members. We have a group of gentlemen who are here every single day at 8 a.m. on the
They're
button.
out there
on
right
the
now.
button. They're like at the door waiting to pop in here. There's like 5, 6 of them. They sit in the sofa out front, and then at that point you see some young professionals walk in the door, maybe some grad students in general, getting their coffee. You see some, we have like a little different areas of the space. We have a nook over by the restrooms there, and at the time it was like a Mexican. All the furniture is secondhand because we didn't have any cash to whatever. So I bought these like high booths from a Mexican restaurant that was unfortunately going out of business in Detroit, and it was like, hey, let's just get this in here so people have places to sit. It's high for COVID. People love it over there in those nooks, and it's always full during the day. So you have a lot of students and like people having virtual meetings in those booths in that booth area over there. So, and then you can see like as the day kind of goes on for the lunch crowd, people come in for full service, on the lunch side. We're really excited because this summer we're launching more fast casual. So we are going to launch actually a whole menu that's special to the cafe.
Okay.
So that cafe side will have like a lot more fast casual options versus like coming in and having like a full blown, like sit down full service meal. So that's your 5th revenue line there. Why not?
Why not? Let's add some more.
Add
I think that space at the beginning too was a big deal, like because of COVID,
yes.
and we have such a large space, high ceilings. People felt comfortable here. People weren't all jammed together. It allowed people to come in, utilize the space, spread out, feel comfortable. And so the students, immediately gravitated, I feel like, towards that because they could, like I said, you'd have people back here, you'd have people in the booths, you'd have people out front. And so it allowed people to do those things, but yet still feel safe and comfortable within the space. But it is pretty cool to see the day and how it transitions. And if you take like a snapshot at any one given moment at the brewery, you see different groups of people. And so yes, during the day, obviously people are utilizing it more as the cafe and the coffee shop. But you'll get a handful of people in here at the bar, in the late morning, early afternoon. But then as the day kind of continues to get further into the day, it starts to kind of slowly change over. It basically just flips, and so you'll still have people coming in for the cafe and to have drinks and to sit and have their meetings, but then the bar starts to fill up more and the restaurant side starts to fill up more, or people are having meetings. And so it's kind of cool because you get the young student vibe. You'll get older community members, which is exactly what
Families.
Chris and I, and families. You know, you'll get kiddos running around in here,
They love
which
this
I know is a
ramp.
separate
They love this
polarizing.
ramp.
It's a separate polarizing topic in breweries, but
Yes,
we've always kind of encouraged that because we wanted it to be a family space. So it really has turned out to be what we set out for it to be, which is like a community gathering place.
Sure.
I want to make a quick comment though on something that I think people will find interesting.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.
For like 2 years, we did trivia and Name That Tune on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Now, I think initially a lot of folks, and in the brewery world, it's like, yes, get people in, do trivia, do Name That Tune. And we did have success with that for a period of time. I will say that there are other breweries within the Bowling Green area, and we love them, and they're fantastic. They also started doing that as well. So I feel like you can kind of get into in a geography, you can get into a moment where it's sort of you're cannibalizing the event, right? You can only have so many trivia nights in a specific geography. So we actually pressed pause on that for 2025. And we did get some some feedback that was like a little blowback on that. Yeah. But what we were finding honestly was, one, the tables weren't turning, right? So people came in and they would sit for a long period of time, but it wasn't allowing tables to turn. And some families and other like community members would like come in, they would see the trivia was going on, it was loud, and they would walk right back out.
Yeah.
And so although it's a very popular thing in the brewery community, we kind of felt like for Juniper, we just wanted to take a pause on that and just see how it played out for us, just to see, and I'll be honest, like Tuesdays and Thursdays are not what they were with the trivia at first, but our intention is that we'll be able to do some other cool, neat things that will start to bring people in. When we first opened, our food menu was not extensive. It was like 4 items. We had like what we called the boards, and we had a taco board, and people, we haven't had this board for 4 stinking years, and people still talk about it.
Still get grief that we took it away.
So we're going to start, so for the summer, we're going to kick off, we have an incredible, Zach has a really, really good Mexican lager called Early Morning. So when we launch that on Cinco de Mayo, we're going to do Taco Tuesdays, which will bring back the board. And so people can come in and it's like all we're going to serve on Tuesdays. So it'll be like, a launch there. So we're going to do some other fun things to promote more of what kind of the vibe that we kind of want. Listen, I don't think trivia and Name That Tune are bad. We kind of felt like for us, it had gotten stale and it had run its course. And so I feel like for other breweries, watch for that. I think that's important because like you can kind of get into a rhythm of like just doing the same old, but we were noticing our numbers were declining as other places were bringing them on. And so for us, it was like, hey, listen, before this goes off the rails, we're just going to pull it now and try something else new. And we can always go back. You can always refresh and kind of go back to that model. But,
those numbers are already starting to come back up again.
Correct.
So, I think it was a smart for where we are.
Because I think that a lot of times, and I've been reading in a lot of the brewery, in the industry, that it's like, hey, the young, Gen Z, they have to have something to do, right? Like the social element, they have to have something to bring them out and get them to do something. But the reality is that like, I kind of feel like for Juniper, there's already so much to do here already. Like we don't, because our model is unique, it's not just a brewery. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it's not a typical just a brewery with like a few menu items. It's different than that. And so I feel like for us specifically, because we have this sort of unique structure in the industry, it wasn't serving us as it could have been in that moment.
Sure. And with a 7,000 square foot facility, you have to find things to be able to put people in. Was Was the brewery created into the space, or did you have the idea going in? Because did you guys look at other places? You're right downtown. You got great foot traffic. You got a great parking lot behind you. You're near
Oh, yeah.
campus.
Yep.
Did you guys look elsewhere? You saw this place and you wanted it, and you built it in here.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. This was it. We walked in. That's how Zach and I kind of are. We're like, we have to have this and nothing else. You know, I mean, like we don't take no for an answer. You know, that kind of a vibe.
Yeah,
But
we actually got word that, the space was going to be coming available through friends, and, being townies, you just hear certain things. And so we,
Sure.
that whole process of obtaining the space and acquiring the space began way like year and a half before,
Yeah.
you know,
we came
the
back.
word that Panera was leaving, things like that actually came out. When we came in then and just saw the unique kind of layout and footprint of the space, we were able, because it had started so early, we were able to kind of design things and kind of have that vision
Nice.
going into it. And Chris just is really good with being able to see those things far better than myself. But what we knew we wanted was that the brewery to be out in the open, as much as possible, so that it was kind of the
Accessible.
first thing, the teacher in me, in both of us, but the teacher in me wanted people to be able to hear it and to see it and to smell it and to be able to walk up there and ask questions.
And they do.
When we were brewing, and yes, they certainly do. But it was something that we, for lots of reasons, a lot of breweries don't. You don't see the brewery, or it's shielded off, or it's enclosed, and we didn't want any of those things. And
Sure.
so, but yes, having that layout early on allowed us to kind of plan for that and build it the way we have.
Sure. Tell me about the brewery. It's right behind us here. What obviously having some experience through the Brewers. I always forget the brewer.
The Brewers Guild.
Brewers Guild. I was going to say Brewers Congress, and I knew that was wrong. Being able to learn some equipment ahead of time, work with some bigger breweries. Did you envision this size? Is this what you wanted to? Because you guys do have a production output here now, along with serving the tap room. So you
Sure.
needed to have that forward thinking instead of we're going to start on a 3-barrel,
Correct.
get that going, and then have to turn around and buy a new system a little.
Exactly.
You started a little bigger than what maybe some smaller breweries would start as.
We absolutely started with more than what we needed, and
Yeah.
we knew that. And we, again, leaning back on our Cleveland connections and our friends, we got a lot of, and we're fortunate enough to ask and then get a lot of the do this, don't do that, wish we would have done this, as far as designing and building out the brewery.
Sure.
So there are some, the system is a 10-barrel system. We knew going in that we in no way needed a 10-barrel system. But we also knew that we wanted to grow, and too many of our friends, like you had said, ran into the opposite, where they started super small, and then they were having to brew, basically around the clock just to keep up with demand.
Mm-hmm.
We knew we wanted to eventually get into the distribution game. We knew ultimately and down the road at some point we wanted to have another location. All these things we talked about, and so it's been, it's a struggle, because that equipment wasn't cheap, obviously, and more than what we probably needed, but it was with that growth mindset kind of in mind. And now, as we continue to ramp up production and the number of barrels, even in today's brewing world, continue to increase, we're grateful that we kind of stuck with that kind of mindset.
Nice. So let's talk about the basically 5 different avenues of revenue now. How does each play a role? Like, is there one that's driving the brewery right now? Or is it trying to split out a little bit? Like, do you like where the revenues are coming from? How do you adjust? Have you thought of adjusting them? What's the fluidity there for you guys?
Yeah, food is the driver.
Yeah.
So food is number one. I think we knew that would be the case going in. I think breweries who are not investing in food of some sort are going to struggle more than breweries that don't.
Yeah.
And so the food is so important, and we have crafted a menu over time, and worked really, really hard on the menu. I mentioned, we started with the boards, and then we evolved into like a more kind of like upscale American style. Think comfort food, but elevated. And that has really worked for us. We have one item that's on the menu that outshines and outperforms everything else, and it's our smash burger. It's not even close. It's like, heads and shoulders above everybody else. So food is number one. Second to that is beer. Beer is creeping up on food fast and furious, especially because we just signed with a distributor in the fall. And the deal with Kroger and the university have really helped us to unlock certain things on the distribution side. So beer is creeping up on food fast and furious. The other two elements that I'm heavily focused on right now, Zach has his hands full with the distribution side, and getting things up and running there, are the fast casual, and also mocktails and cocktails and catering. So those, I said three things, I think. But the reality is that I'll start with the mocktails and cocktails. So Zach is science background. He's an incredible scientist. He's super good with flavors. And we have worked really hard to acquire all the licensures needed to do THC CBD offerings. So we do have right now one offering. It's a hop water. It's canned. It's a THC CBD product, and it's unbelievable. It's super duper amazing. And we're trying to create different mocktails around that. So, playing with Monin syrups and thinking about, how do we, and fresh juices, and trying to think about how do we come out with something really fun for, the summertime. So that's really important, especially as we evolve that specific product. So we're also doing things with flavored THC. So not doing specific hop water, but coming out with THC with like, lavender lemonade, or like, raspberry one. So like we're thinking about all those things too. And so playing off of those and really building off of those and coming out with different like ways to offer it is really important. So we're focused on that.
Yeah.
The fast casual piece is another one. Like what we're finding is with the cafe during the day, you mentioned like how does the place transition? What we're finding is that lunch has a lot of opportunity, and by opportunity, the sales could be better. so we're thinking like, man, a fast casual and lots of like really good offerings in our open air cooler would be probably smart, right? So you're walking up to the counter similarly as you would if you were at Starbucks or if you were at Panera, and there are offerings right there for you to grab and go. We make in-house potato chips. There's no reason why we can't bag those, have them out. You can order, a lunch meat sandwich, grab the chips and hop water, a regular hot water, no THC, or THC if you like, and head out the door, or sit down, enjoy it there, have your virtual meeting, whatever it is. The fast casual element of things is super important, and we're going to come out with a whole menu based on that. Off of that, we will pull and create what we're calling Junie boxes, which is catering. So we have such a strong partnership with the university. It just makes sense that specifically with athletics, right? An athletics order for their athletes 3 times a day for all the different sports teams. And so there's a lot of opportunity to create an offering for them with these we call them Junie boxes, and Junie Junior boxes, so snack packs. So we're coming out with, first is the fast casual cafe menu. We'll pull from that to come out with like an offering for these boxes and the catering. So that side, again, focusing on the different revenue lines to create a more sound business model. It's not reliant on one thing.
So you're saying you're busy right now.
Yeah. Did I mention I work a whole other full-time job?
Well, that's kind of a great thing. Well, let's look towards the future, look towards the past. You guys are talking about what you're doing. If you could go back and do it again, what would you have changed in the business structure? What did you say? You're doing it now, maybe, but you wish you would have started at the beginning. And it can be any part of it. I mean, what's been the biggest thing that you're like, that didn't work, or
I wish we would have picked a different contractor. I was not happy with our contractor. I think we're still living out mistakes that were made.
Sure.
We really struggled with that. I think that if there was one thing that all the other stuff was trial and error, was learn on the fly.
Sure.
And that stuff is valuable. That's like stuff that is gold to me. Like because you've lived it and you've learned it and you can create it, take it on as you go. Contractor stuff. There's just so many mistakes that were made promise that yes, we've done this before. We know what we're doing. It was not a good story. I would say number one advice and regret was that 100% the contractor.
Yeah, I felt like we had they came recommended to us, and so it was a no-brainer at the time, not knowing
Sure.
really anyone else. I think that
They had experience,
they have multiple breweries under their belts for sure.
but the difference was, and me being a construction lender, I should have dug in a little more, quite frankly. I would say they had experience with like standalone structures. Okay. That you mentioned, this is downtown. This is Main Street, USA. This is a historical building.
Yeah.
So in the experience of being a construction lender, I created a reserve, like 20% of our budget set aside for like if there were issues. In a standard construction loan, you're only setting aside 10%. But I was like, listen, I don't know what's going to happen here. This is a historical building. We're going to set aside 20%. And thank God we did.
Oh, we blew through that.
We blew through that like nobody's business, like, and so, I think that they didn't know what they didn't know when they came into this building because it was historical. Getting, there's no easy access to the outside. So all of the ventilation, all the coolers, it was just a
lot of challenges.
Lots of challenges.
Anything else you would say? Regret? Like,
No, I mean, sure there are, but I think that, like you said, we try to take them all as learning opportunities. And even in the failures, we probably learn more that way. But the biggest one I would say would be the contractor.
Issues. We know when we write our book. Well, yeah, and when we start location number 2, we'll know a lot more and be able to navigate that a lot better.
Yeah,
sure,
we will.
Sure. All right, well, let's wrap it up. I like doing this with kind of not rapid fire because we could talk about them, but just fun questions to end the podcast. I've been having a blast doing it this year, and you didn't see these questions, so. And this one it can be for both of you, obviously, but what's one change you've made to a beer that's been a huge difference?
I would tell you that in our hazy IPAs, the hop schedule and when we're adding hops has been huge for us, and in what we're putting out as far as the hazies go, and then finding and utilizing hop terpenes has been a big thing for us lately. We, like Chris said, I'm a big science guy, so any of the hop guys know how to get me. They just put out this big flashy new thing and say this new hop product, and I'm like, oh hell yeah, like I want to try and dig into that. So it's been really fun to work with and learn about those, and I feel like it's translated into a higher quality product for us on that end.
Gotcha. And anything that you've liked that's been changed?
I would say, although they're not Zach's favorites, I love an incredible porter and stout, and he has been so, like, just some of the flavorings and some of the things that he's come out. Day Tripper, which is on right now, is an incredible porter. It's got like coconut in it, things that he probably is not super interested in, but I love it, and I don't know. I'm a fan of all his beer. I know that sounds cliche, but it's real. Like Zach's, his philosophical approach is a very balanced approach, and it when you taste a Zach Tracy, beer, a brew, it's nothing ever is going to overpower anything else. It all combines to this perfect like symphony, and it's just all his beers are fantastic. Obviously, I'm partial, but.
All right, this is another one. Your favorite or least favorite swag when you go to a conference? Something that's sitting out that you got to grab, something that you get and you instantly are tossing it. Like this is for our advertisers to be like, okay.
Swag.
Well, I like some of the glassware that we've been getting that when we go to there, especially when there's beer in it and they give it to me. I love those. That's swag. But some of the other stuff, like if we're going to a conference that I throw away right away. I don't use koozies when people give us koozies. I don't use that.
I actually have one. So like I love these little hop pins. Like these are on my like work bag, so I just think these are really cute. I just always love the little pins. I don't know where, like my kids have some of the pins on their stuff.
Mine too.
I like the pins. I like the hats. There was one vendor who did like a screen print on your own hat. So you pick the hat
CBC,
and they had like
at
CBC, they had like a screen print hat thing. I'm a hat person, so I love that.
What don't you like? I'm more interested in that right now.
You know what I don't? I'm over the stress balls. Like, come on, like that's just like annoying. Like nobody wants those anymore. You
Yeah.
know, like I mean, we all need them, but you know, I'd rather put out some CBD gummies. You know, like that's you're going for stress, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pens are always good.
Yep.
But a good pen, not a crappy pen.
There's a big difference.
It's a big
There
difference.
is a big difference. Yes.
Yes. We did his thesis on.
Oh yeah, in my former life in forensics, I did differentiating pennings of the same color, so I knew every pen like ever manufactured. So, and man, I was like, there are good pens and there are not.
All right, last one. What's the most ridiculous or unexpected thing you've ever been asked to do at a previous job?
Any job?
Any job. So growing up, whatever, something you're like unexpected or ridiculous.
So on my very first job out of college, I worked for a new home builder, and the women that were there were like, "Oh, this person is coming into town from the Canton area, and they really love Dietz pretzels. And if you know, Dietz pretzels are in the Findlay area.
Yeah.
So Chris, we need you to drive to Findlay and go get those pretzels for this person coming in." I felt like it was just a real weird, like, what? This is my first day, and I was asked. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. I totally remember
It
that.
was so like weird to be able to
Cater to someone at that level. Yeah.
I know.
I would probably say, I think back to Cleveland Heights when I taught at Heights High, and one of the days when I went in there, one of the science teachers in my wing had corn snakes, and they would feed them.
God, this is a great one.
Mice. Okay, but I mean, the mice weren't living; but we keep them in like a deep freezer.
Yeah.
And so the teacher would take a mouse out; they would be in a bag, obviously, and he'd set it on his like top of his monitor of his computer to like kind of gently thaw that thing out, right? Well, it was on like a Friday, and when I came in on Monday, like Chris said, I was early, so I was always, if not the first, one of the first people in the science wing at the time, and so you had to open a big door to get into the science wing. And it was all the way down the hall, and so the minute I opened that door, there was this just wall of not good aromas, and I was like, what is happening right now? Before teaching, I was in forensic science, so some of these aromas I had experienced before. And so as I made my way down the hallway, it just kept growing, and I got into his classroom, and that mouse had been sitting on there all weekend and had like liquefied. And it was the most disgusting thing one of the most disgusting, awkward, not expected, certainly things that I ever had to do at one of my jobs, which really didn't have anything to do with teaching.
No, but did you still have to have school? The kids had to come in there, or did they?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
The well, good or not so good thing was they didn't have that aroma, but that was before Heights High got completely basically like rebuilt and redone. So the kids were used to dealing with lots of things in the old science wing. And sometimes whether it was temperature, whether it was like, what is that smell? Not that specific smell, but other things. But yeah, that was crazy.
Oh, well, that's a great way to end this one. Smells and aromas. Brewers know them all anyway,
right.
So we're good to go. Guys, thanks so much for doing this with us.
Oh, thanks for having us again.
Thank
We
you so much.
appreciate
It was
it.
awesome.
It was fun.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.